Hey everybody, this is John for MTG Nexus with another of our videos for the Going Infinite Challenge with Modern Boros Burn. If you like what you're seeing on the channel, please consider subscribing, giving us a thumbs up, and leaving a constructive comment down below. As we still aim to be the most informative lightning bolt based modern channel, as well as aggro decks here in Pioneer, along with some other Pioneer content. I want to give a huge shout out to our new Patreon, Juan Carlos Lafari. I hope I pronounced that last name correctly. I do apologize. He is our newest Patreon on our Patreon page, where I try to put up a sideboard guide at least twice a month for Burn. I've been a little bit behind this month, as there has been a shift in content recently to more Pioneer-based, as the Magic community was rocked by the announcement of Pioneer late last month and going into this month, so a lot of the content world has been in an uproar, between Standard, quite frankly, being pretty terrible right now, Pioneer going through its infancy changes with bans and such, latest thing being Veil of Summer banned in that format, and then Modern, obviously, not a whole lot of emphasis has been placed on that in content production, and quite frankly, as I've done videos of recently, the modern content has not done anywhere near as well as it previously had, so that's kind of necessitated changes in the channel. So going forward, there's going to be some shifts in content, shifts in hopefully production value as well. We are going to continue to be doing Burn in Modern. We're going to continue to do Is It Phoenix videos on occasion in Modern, but obviously there's going to be a shift towards Pioneer content. The Going Infinite Challenge is a two-part thing, trying to make things a little bit more interesting for the Modern thing, and also trying to, give a little bit of extra incentive to continue playing Modern. To myself personally, something interesting to keep rolling. The first league, obviously, we went 2-3, lost about half of our entry fee. The second run, we went 3-2. So it's been an interesting set of leagues so far. If you want to go back and watch those on the thing, we'll definitely have those linked at the end of the video if you want to check that out. But as for the deck, we're going to be running it the same way as we did last time. Still running 2 Core Firewalkers, because like every time I don't run Core Firewalker, I run into red mirrors. Every time I do, I don't, so, beyond that, it's kind of your typical Boros Burn list. One of the big things a couple people have asked me about offline is the emergence of Oko in the format, and to be frank, I have not run into too many people playing Oko decks in Modern. Maybe we'll be able to remedy that with this league, get some idea of how to start attacking that card. Might be doing a short gauntlet series on different Oko decks in the format, so be on the lookout for that if that's something you're interested in, and let me know what type of content you would like to see as far as Modern Burn. But as far as this list, this is kind of just your prototypical Boros Burn list since the printing of Sunbay Canyon. We're only running 4 copies of Sunbay Canyon. Some people run, 5th or 6th Painland in the form of Fiery Islet, etc. I'm not a huge fan of that. I can definitely see the upside, but there is a lot of downside to the more Painlands you put into the deck. Beyond that, 2 copies of Skullcrack in the main, only 3 copies of Searing Blaze. This is to make room for the full 4 copies of Skullcrack between the main and the sideboard, as obviously Life Gain was on the upswing when Burn was considered the deck to beat in Modern, which I think it's begun to fade a little bit as things like Amulet Titan and Eldrazi Tron have started to kind of push their way to the top of the format, at least in terms of what decks have been doing well in the events. Like I said, there's been a downtick in the thing in Modern here. And also want to give a huge shout out to two local players in my area. Stephen Michael Tuchek, recently placed in the top 25 of the last Paper Mythic Championship, and then Miguel Chavez recently won our Players Tour event at our Players Tour qualifier event at our local ICG store. So shout out to both those guys I've played quite a few times on Paper. Both of them are terrific players, and wanted to give them also a quick shout out, as well as my local store, ICG store, and Tom Vaughn, the owner. That said, let's jump into the matches here. So other than the Oko printings in Modern and the huge drop-off in Modern content production, and also even demand for Modern content production, in some ways I think Modern's going to kind of go the way Legacy will kind of become the legacy format, at least as far as what Wizards supports. But, you know, legacy has its place, and so does Burn, I feel. So does Modern, even in Pioneer skyrocketing popularity. This hand's pretty good. Lead on the 1-drop. Hand could be a bit of a dud if our Searing Blazes are dead, but, you know, in the blind against an unknown opponent, you can't really, you know, can't really be too picky. I think one of the best draws would be a fetch land over the next turn or two. Specifically. Oh dear. So we're up against Witchbane Orb. Wonderful. Our opponent can play as early as turn 3. Apparently they wanted to draw whatever it was. Yeah, we're going to lose our Lightning Bolt here, which is unfortunate. Target that, get an extra point of prowess here. Okay, Pithing Needle's an interesting one. Witchbane Orb coming down. Starring Bridge, sure. Pithing Needle on Sunbay Canyon. So... Problem is, put our opponent to 1 here. Okay, Lantern, sure. Alright, so they're gonna get to unload their entire hand. It's unfortunate. Which means they're going to get stabilized at 1. Basically locked out of the game at 1, which is extremely annoying. Alright. Good old-fashioned... Lantern control. Decks I haven't seen for 1,000, Alex. At least in a while. So, what... Psi. Fairy Time Raveler. Hard to really say what our opponent's running in their list, per se. I was gonna say, I recall playing against Angel Lufa before. So... guess Lightning Helix isn't terribly relevant here. This hand's decent, albeit not fantastic. Especially if they have a discard spell like Inquisition on one, this hand gets significantly worse. Okay. Of course they have an Inquisition. Problem with Lantern Control is, like you said, like we saw on game 1 there, they just take so flippin' long to win a game. But the game's effectively over, like, turns and turns later. So... like, they'll be gaining a life a turn now, too. Like, the problem continues to be, like, obviously we need to find and that's game, because then they could work for Invention for Witchbane Orb, and then we'll never draw a relevant... actually, I just conceded the game too early, potentially. But Wear Tear may not have been enough to punch through here, so... I did just concede the game a bit early. I forgot I had the Wear Tear in my hand. But the game was likely over at that point, because they can... Invention's fair for something, and then War of Invention as well, so between that and a copy of whatchamacallit, the Regeneration one, probably were dead here. So anywho, on to match number 2. As you can tell, this is one of my least favorite matches to play against, especially the few Lantern players that are still playing the deck are obviously very good with it. Know what they're looking for, and obviously they were able to stabilize at 1 here. I should have kept playing this match out a little bit, but we were likely dead, so, because they would have been able to get the Regenerate Welding Jar, and then were for Witchbane Orb, likely before we would have been able to kill them. So, little bit of a premature concession on my part. I thought this war was just lethal with forgetting that I had a wear tear in my hand, but good chance this wear tear wouldn't have been enough. So, anyways, on to match number 2. Alright, we're back here for match number 2. Now, this is a hand. So, a lot of times with Burn, people consider keeping 1-land hands. This is certainly the kind of 1-land hand that, if it pans out, could do a lot of damage, so we're going to keep it. But, I mean, obviously there are some risks to keeping 1-land hands, but when you have this many 1 casting cost spells, I think you just go ahead and roll with it. And if we happen to hit a second land, this hand becomes very, very good, very, very fast. Especially if they don't have an immediate answer to Swift Spear here. Sure. Is it Reborn, huh? Of course you have a Lightning Helix, because why wouldn't you? Really? To bounce their Astrolabe? Yep. Sure. Do they have Niv Daddy here? Doesn't do a whole lot, but at least might force our opponent's hand at something with Teferi here. Really? We're going to bring the light at the end of turn. If they have a burn spell, we're dead here anyway, so I'm not going to play around it. Alright, so... want the skull cracks. We might want Path to Exile. Problem with Niv Mizzet particularly is... yeah, it looks like they're playing largely the same list they were before. Even down to the 2 snow-covered plains. Got even more life gain in the sideboard, because why not? Searing Blazes in general aren't particularly good here. The only question is, what other card are we even interested in? A Firecraft, maybe? This hand's pretty good. I'm getting to 5. I'm getting to 4. Please don't tell me you have Leyline in your sideboard to boot. That's a pretty good draw. Sure. Well, with our opponent... alright, yeah. All the more reason to hold up Skullcrack here. Problem is our opponent's going to get to gain life this turn. The Knight of Autumn, so they're going to have to go to 9. No, our opponent has a Dovin's Veto in hand. Obviously, if they have to 3 fairy, that could be slightly annoying. Pretty sure we got this, but only took them mulliganing to 5 and oh, so much life gain. So if they're playing anything similar to their last top 5-0 list, they're playing 4 Lightning Helix, 3 copies of Kaya's Guile between main and sideboard, Knight of Autumn, a Chemball, yeah, just so much stuff to fight through. I think as much as I don't want too many copies of Searing Blaze, a copy or 2 would be fine against fairly decent amount of creatures. This is another one of those hands. I still think we keep it. Has a lot of irrigated farm. Yep, that one's in their list too. Alright. This hand potentially very good now, but we could get helixed on too, so. Of course, we get helixed on too. Not too much of a reason to fetch. Let's do this while they're tapped out. Since we don't have Skullcrack to hold up anyway, I'm not even going to bother trying to play around stuff, especially when they do have access to problematic life gain spells, which they're probably about to play Kaya's Guile. Okay. Let's get our spectacle cards out of our hand this turn. Pass turn. Hopefully you don't have Huntmaster of the Fells. No, you have a 4th land. Guess you wouldn't be able to cast Huntmaster this turn anyway. Okay, 3 fairies, sure. Pass turn. Okay. Fortunately, this means our opponent gets to bring to light for something stupid. Sure. Nine plus whatever. Yeah. We're just dead because that's 9 damage, 11 damage, and we can't cast a spell. So, yay fun! Off to a roaring 2-0 start so far. Anyways, on to match number 3. So we're back doing a quick overview of the deck, or sort of deck we were playing against. So, one thing I wanted to point out is the Modern Challenge this past weekend, only 6 rounds. That's very equivalent to what the Legacy Challenge events have been. So that kind of indicates that there might be a little bit of a dip in popularity in Modern with Pioneer, something I've been talking about throughout the video. But as we look at what our opponent was doing, those who aren't familiar, this is a Niv Mizzet Reborn deck. The main thing is to use things like Arkham's Astrolabe, and in conjunction with things like Run and 6 and Teferi to kind of fix your mana, interact in the early game. They use things like Lightning Helix, Kaya's Guile to gain life. So for kind of a slow, clanky mid-range deck, it has a lot of life gain, which obviously is very bad for burn. Things like Lightning Helix, Kaya's Guile, also things like Huntmaster of the Fells and Tosamir that we saw in game number 1. Then on the sideboard, they have things like Chemball, Kaya's Guile, Knight of Autumn. So 3 more copies of life gain in addition to copies of things like Bring to Light to kind of hold it all together. And then using things like Safe Rate Quest and Arkham's Astrolabe. The kind of insane part is if you look at their mana base, it's not all that painful. They have the copies of Breeding Pool, Irrigated Farmland, Overgrown Tomb. So basically one of each. 1, 2, 3. They don't play Temple Garden. So basically they have one of each Shockland that are green, except Farmland, which is a blue-white dual, and then a whole bunch of snow-covered basics to fuel your Arkham's Astrolabe, and then copies of Pillar of the Peyrune, kind of tied all together. So deck actually has a very painless mana base. This is a deck that I considered as one of my tertiary Modern decks before Modern kind of went. And as such, I just kind of use Phoenix, Tron, and Burn, so really no reason to continue building this deck at the moment, although there are some variants of it that do reasonably well in Pioneer. But the sheer absurd amount of utility this deck has between Bring to Light and such is kind of insane. But I figured I'd go over the list that we were playing against. This is our opponent's exact list from like a week ago or so that they 5-0'd with. But just and also Kaya. So absurd amounts of life gain in this deck. Very powerful mid-range deck. It's a deck that I probably would enjoy playing at some point, honestly. But just showing what the kind of cards we were playing up against when we were playing that match and we lost 2-1 there. So, anyways, on to match number 3. Yeah, we're back for our 3rd match in this Going Infinite League challenge number 3. That seems pretty reasonable, though unfortunately we are on the draw. Still, I'm inclined to keep. Double Eidolon might not be great. So possible we're up against Valakut. Still could be Valakut. Definitely feels like Valakut now. Generally this is a good matchup, but our hand's not particularly designed for speed here, so... should indicate to us whether they have a bolt here. Okay, cast, do this correctly. Cast Skewer first, then Eidolon. Max Single, that's a... definitely going deep. So we know they have the Foothills in their hand. Interesting. Sure. Alright, 1, 2, 3, 4 mountains. We're gonna Scapeshift here. 1, 2. GG, well played, friend. Alright, so... definitely want the skull cracks. So Witchbane Orb is a consideration. So maybe I want a copy or two of Wear Tear and Smash. Then go down the 3 copies of Blaze, because they don't have a ton of targets, especially with the Explore package. And then maybe consider shaving an Eidolon on the draw, so it can be a little bit slow. Wear Tear gives us utility against if they have a Leyline. Smash gives us utility if they have Witchbane Orb, and obviously Wear can kill Witchbane Orb as well. That's why the split instead of the 2 smashes, because Leyline is certainly a card they could have. The problem with specifically bringing in or leaving in Searing Blaze is their only creatures are usually Sakura Tri-Builder and Primeval Titan. Don't think we can keep this hand. This hand's just too clunky. This hand's better. Get rid of the thing. One of the keys in this matchup is to try to keep your life total above 20. Otherwise, if we would have gone to 18 or lower, actually our opponent would have been able to kill us with that Scapeshift. So it was actually kind of important that our million base didn't deal us a ton of damage that last game. Did not really want to draw another land with this hand. gods, sure. Probably a Sakura Tribe Elder here to chump for a turn. Yep. Good old Steve-O. Draws a land off of it. They get to block sack. There's a good chance they would have sacked this at the end of turn and we wouldn't have had to give them the extra land anyway, but I still think in the end we're supposed to attack there. Be interesting if they jam Anger here or if they jam Baloth. Problem becomes if they have Witchbane Orb here. Yeah, Anger's kind of whatever. Eidolon's not terrible, but it's also kind of in the face of Baloth, so... It felt like our opponent was debating something there, so I have a feeling I just want to hold up Skullcrack this turn. Okay, Steve-O, sure. They have Baloth, they have Baloth. A whole lot we can do here. Oh, for Pete's sake. Weather the storm, huh? Alright. Fair enough. Suspect that means we can bring these out. Probably want the 4th Eidolon in on the draw here. Path, but Path is fine as a one of. Weather the storm. Weather the freaking storm. If they have it, they have it. There's nothing I can do here. Yeah, they definitely have to have Weather the Storm here. Missed an opportunity to cast Bolt at the end of turn. Really want to get that Weather the Storm out of their hands. 6. This will put them to 4 if they have anger. And then they're just dead. Okay. Feel bad, but the way our league's gone so far, sometimes you gotta catch a few breaks. Anyways, on to match number 4. Back here for match number 4. Unfortunately, we're on the draw. Can we keep his hand on the draw is the question. Double Eidolon. This hand has enough upside to go ahead and keep it. Got Riftbolt and some of these on 1. Double Eidolon can be pretty reasonable depending on what our opponent's playing. This were on the play, this would have been an instant mulligan. I think because we were on the draw, it was worth gambling on a little bit. So either Death Shadow or Living End. Okay, takes an Eidolon, sure. No reason to show our opponent we drew a land. Okay, GDS confirmed. Probably gonna get hit by a good old-fashioned Gurmag. Nope, guess Gurmag Angler isn't possible here. No sense in allowing our opponent's Death Shadow to grow here. So you gotta have another creature, right? Another Death Shadow. So if you have a stub, you're dead here. Alright, on the sideboard against a shadow. Definitely want those. Definitely want the firecrafts, because that's what they're here for. In addition to blue-white control, that's the main reason they're there in the sideboard. Probably should look up my own sideboard, guys, since it's been a minute since I played this deck. Played against Death Shadow. Doo-doo-doo. Out 3 Searing Blaze. And 2 copies of Skewer. Bring in 1 copy of Skullcrack. Seems reasonable. It's hard to say exactly how many copies of Collective Brutality they'll have in their lists, so seems reasonable. Obviously depends on what their form of interaction is. Yeah. Never good when they have to start on Street Wraith. At least for them. Good for us, not good for them. So, because they're leading on, we could miss a point of damage here, but I want to bait out any type of removal spell they might have. Looks like we're just going to get Brutality on too. See if they have Fatal Push here. Did you really keep a hand with no form of interaction? Seems ambitious to say the least. Okay. Sure. Guess if they have TBR, we're just dead here. Oh, gonna make the trade? Sure. Yep. Just auto pass, so sure. Yeah, may as well. Alright, got back to 2 and 2 on to match number 5. Back for our 5th and final match on the play, fortunately. Unfortunately, a 5-lander is just not an acceptable keep. This hand's fine. Hopefully we hit a land. Probably put back one of the Eidolons here. Mountain, huh? Alright, sure. Land, please. Land, please. Why would you... Okay. Still makes no sense. Okay, sure. That is most unfortunate. Okay. Alright, so... I think suffice to say we're losing this race. Alright. Turn 3 kills, always good. So... Prowess, huh? Definitely bring in the core firewalkers. Definitely bring in the smash to smithereens. And could consider bringing in Past or Searing Bloods. Boros Charms are a fairly easy cut. Just could bring in these 4 for those 4. Could bring in the Searing Bloods, could bring in the Path to Exiles potentially. Reason you bring in Smash is specifically the card Dragon's Claw, although they could also potentially bring in the card Shrine of Burning Rage. Rest in Peace really only attacks the Bedlam Reveler angle. Path could be reasonable in certain spots. The question is, what would I cut? Skullcrack's not great in the face of Dragon's Claw anyway, so I may as well go ahead and bring in Path to Exile. The reason it's not particularly good against Dragon's Claw is the fact of can't keep a 4-lander. Even if it's decent in the matchup, you can't keep a 4-lander. I think the cut here is Lava Spike. Might just be Path. I think we want to push as much damage as possible in the early turns while killing their creatures. So, but going down resources in the mirror is pretty terrible. As much as I want to prioritize getting damage, I just want to clear their board of creatures. It's a lot harder for their deck to win without creatures on the battlefield. And what's your last card, friend? Bolt the Swift Spear? Sure. Awkward. Taking a bit of a gamble here, obviously. Oh boy, they just had the 10 billion creature draw. Yeah. Drawing mountains, probably quite unfortunate. Kozilek's return, sure. Just gonna hold Bolt in my hand in case they go for a really big turn here. Pass turn. Dragon's Claw is problematic. Very problematic. Yeah, that was dumb on my part. Should have done it in response to the light up the stage. Yeah, another copy of Light Up the Stage. Oh, Burst Lightning, sure. Feels like this is a losing proposition here. Shh. Kind of a sad ending to the league after rallying back to the 2-2. So, kind of a short takeaway there from last couple matches, it still doesn't feel like Burn's the best positioned deck in the format. I'm not going to sit here and say that it is. You look down through the matches, really doesn't tell us a whole lot, honestly. The Lantern Control matchup is generally favorable from a theoretical perspective, but most of the people that are still playing Lantern Control are obviously pretty much specialists with the deck, so they have a very high win percentage with the deck, most likely. They're probably very proficient with it, and so they know exactly what they're doing, so that probably gives them a tremendous amount of edge with that deck, because there is quite a bit of play and decision making to that deck sometimes. The Niv Mizzet Reborn matchup, the way our particular opponent's deck is built, seems pretty miserable. Scapeshift's generally a favorable matchup, and Death Shadow has generally been a favorable matchup. And then the Red Prowess matchup feels like a coin toss, maybe slightly in their favor. Them hitting that Dragon's Claw in the second game, and then me trying to bolt the Swift Spear that turn was just a complete total waste of a Lightning Bolt. I don't even think that particular play would even really matter, unfortunately. I think even if I'd killed the Swift Spear, I guess killing the Swift Spear might have been the best play, but just the fact that they hit that Dragon's Claw off that light up a stage, which they would have been able to cast anyway, just felt like we probably would have lost that spot without drawing one of the two smashes we boarded in. So, it's one of the things in the matchup. They're aware of what our hate card is in Core Firewalker. They had Kozilek's Return, we're aware of their hate card, and then game number 1, we mulliganed the 6 and then just never drew a second land to get rid of that. Get rid of their Prowess guys. The key to being the Prowess deck is to keep their creatures off the board. They often can't burn out opponents quite from the same life total. We learned that lesson the hard way last time when we had a chance to play against Prowess and we had a chance to burn out a Bedlam Reveler. I chose not to. That ended up coming back to bite me in the butt as they killed me with a 10-11. So, it's really kind of hard to say that matchup, like how to boards completely correctly. Multiple copies of Core Firewalker could certainly help, but as you saw, they had Kozilek's Return there, so there's no guarantee that card would have been enough. And then, obviously, we have to find our hate card to their hate card. So, unfortunately, that's why a lot of people don't like Modern. A lot of times the post-board games come down to if you have the right hate card, or if your deck's built to beat your opponent's deck, like, the Niv Mizzet deck with that much life gain. Tough matchup. So, a lot of the complaints about Modern over time has just been the fact that Modern is a very hate card, anti-hate card relationship in a lot of matchups, or a lot of getting dumpstered on turn 3 or turn 4. It's really kind of hard to argue with that, especially now with the Alternative and Pioneer around, and Standard being such a train wreck. But we will definitely continue this series. Unfortunately, we are down 10 of our original entry fee of 30, so hopefully we'll be able to continue this series rolling. I think I might continue it rolling just because, but it's been an interesting thing since we've gone to that our results with Burn have kind of tanked a little bit. Some of it's obviously the matchups. There's been a few play mistakes here and there, but as always, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you have any suggestions for the series or for the channel in general, please feel free to send off in the comments. I'll definitely be trying to put out some more content and kind of letting you guys on the veil as things are going through. There'll be some changes to the channel coming up as we get ready to roll into 2020, and hopefully they will all be for the positive. But as always, this has been John for MTG Nexus. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to check out our earlier playlists of these Infinite Challenge so far, what decks we've played against. This has been John for MTG Nexus. See you next time.